Good evening and welcome back to the Dwarven Railway Experimental Centre of Keskalokil, where I basically spent the whole of Friday evening incredibly tediously trying to work out what was wrong with my signalling system, mostly concluding that nothing was wrong with my signalling system, or at least that each of the individual components appeared to be correctly wired up and behaving correctly. On the other hand, the last time we actually tried an integration test of it, it failed horribly. So, yes, I think I want to just try another integration test and work out what goes wrong. First, I need to get that minecart out of the way, though, because that minecart there should not be there. Also, that child there will probably not want to be drowned. Can that child swim yet? Probably not. No. Dabbling mechanic, because I wanted a mechanics guild in order to enable us to build things faster. Yes, that minecart, let's just make sure that's not attached to the dwarf washer routes don't have any minecarts attached, so that one will be collected shortly. Let's wait for that to happen before we try to fill everything with water. And then we also need to make sure that that signal gets disengaged at some appropriate time. So yes, I want to wait for that minecart to be moved. Still confused about smoothing. We should maybe let's slightly investigate that again. So I think we currently have this set. Let's just try randomly turning on 2 more of those, just in case making some change there improves matters. I am not hopeful, though, in particular because we don't even seem to get tasks scheduled for the smoothing. Like, does selecting things for smoothing just not work in this version or something? Smooth. See, one might hope that then someone would smooth that section of wall. Well, let's see if they do. I suspect they won't. Because our experience is so far that trying to do that doesn't work. There is a very unhappy child currently in the area that's about to be flooded. I mean, we could pump some water in there and see if it discourages them. Well, possibly only somewhat unhappy. I'm still confused by the unhappiness of children in this game. Like, they get all these positive thoughts, admittedly most of them from shouting at people about how unhappy they are, but yet they stay unhappy. What's with that? I mean, yes, you're 2 years old, but that should mean that your emotional state changes with at least some frequency. Also, it'd be nice if you would go and play make-believe somewhere else. Yeah, still no tasks involving, like, smoothing that wall. What's going on with smoothing? Is there some weird bug in the new version or something? You know, at least this person has some reason to be unhappy. Afraid after experiencing trauma, and lonely after being away from family for too long, and bored after being unable to wander for too long. Though, like, learning about surgery is apparently very helpful. Good. Let's try pumping some water into there and trying not to drown the child. All being well, the child will go, oh, it's all wet, and move. One possible thing that I'm thinking might have been an issue. Right, let's turn the pumps off again. On the grounds that that's enough water to scare the child, I hope. Then, all being well, they might, like, leave the area. No, apparently not. They haven't even found any mist. Oh, they've cleared off. Or drowned. But I think cleared off. Yes, there they are. Fath Kono Samud has moved out of the swimming pool, so we can turn the pumps on again. Hang on. That looks like we haven't turned them off. What? Now I'm confused. Is the pump on or off? The pump is on. The screw pump is active. But there isn't, like, the water level here. Well, it's 4 there, but then it drops to 1 immediately. Very confused. Well, let's just cancel both of the lever pulling jobs then. And just be a bit confused about what's happening with the water. Like, it's 6 deep there, and then 1 deep there. Something is the water is not operating correctly, I think. Oh, it's filling up the underground tunnel. That's what's happening. Right, yes, no, that's fine. That's all entirely normal. Oh, I haven't closed the drain. That's why it's not filling up. It's not filling the underground tunnel. It started filling the underground tunnel. So it's right. Where's the drain control? It's quite nearby, isn't it? Yes. Yes, this floor is very yellow because it's entirely full of booze. Like, this entire temple is now packed with barrels of prickleberry wine and persimmon wine and carrot wine and mead and apricot wine and whip wine and sandpear cider and potato wine and cherry wine. Yes, as Steph points out, it might be a temple of lunch if you think your lunches should be mostly alcoholic and liquid. We don't really have Advocat here. So all being well, someone will now find the lever that closes this floor hatch. Then the water will stop pouring down it, and then things will actually start filling up again. Right, the tunnel's full now. So now the water actually starts filling this room again. That's very curious because initially it flooded this room and then it started flooding the tunnel and then it started flooding this room again. Which is kind of strange. Right, so still no smoothing going on. Look, nothing there is getting smoothed. Is there something? Yes, it wasn't in blueprint mode. It was in rectangle smoothing. Like, there really is no good reason why smooth things should not get smoothed. Yes, they're set to stone engraving, which I believe includes smoothing. Maybe I just need to find some other way to get the water off them, out of the way from my attempt at draining the river, which is now kind of rather spoilt by the fact that the all the relevant tunnels are full of water from aquifers. But like, it's a long way, quite a long way down to the. Do we even know if the caverns extend that far south? Possibly we just dig down there and see if we can strike some caverns. Like, we really don't know what the caverns do in the south end. Maybe we can build another drain into the caverns. Thank you. Yes, you've named your battle axe. I don't know that that's really something I need the game to explicitly alert me to. Of course, it's slightly hard to stop water leaking into a staircase from an aquifer if you don't have smoothing as well. You need to like dig it out and wall it off properly, which is a bit messy. So yes, we can't currently extend that staircase downwards because it's like 3Z levels deep in water at the bottom of it. So we would need to go dig another staircase next to it just for drainage, for exploratory finding out where the caverns are purposes. But let's do that because I think the alternative is just going to be annoying, like trying to work out why on earth we can't so like on the other levels we found the caverns by -11. No, actually that's foolish. Oh, it's a vile force of darkness. Right, hang on. I'll be with you in a moment, vile force of darkness. I just want to make some plans. Let's not dig that there. Let's dig it a little further away so that we can wall in. Since we can't, if we can't smooth anything, then if we want to waterproof the bits that go through aquifer layers, we need to do it by digging out a 3x3 hole and then putting a wall around it. So that means we need to be far enough away from the other workings that we can expand to 3x3. So let's do that. Meanwhile, so at the moment the vile force of darkness consists of 2 goblins and 2 beak dogs. What's happened to that? Oops. Let's resume construction of that thing. I think we'll follow our usual approach of parley and then hit them, because that gives us a chance to get the military onto the surface. Which is worth doing, even if we are, means it's worth putting off the invasion briefly. Plus, it means we have time to get a feel for the size of their forces.
The size of people's forces.
Justin says, did you replenish your military? A bit, yes. I refilled the non-swimming squads to their full strength and set them to continuous training in a desperate hope of bringing them up to a useful standard quickly. Don't know if it's worked, but it might have done. Also, I built this drawbridge here, which allows me to go round to the back of the enemy army and hit them from behind with non-amphibious squads. Notably, it looks like all the goblins have arrived this time riding beak dogs. Hence the twirly bits. Not that that's like immediately clear. They are mostly dressed in copper though. As strong bad monster. Yes, probably. As strong, I think. Yes. Given that they've also brought a beak dog called Astrog. Beak dogs only appear to get single names. Sinful tumours. Vice scars. Hexcoal, that's a slightly odd name. Amxu Fiery Dungeons. Anyway, so yes, we'll go and have a chat with them while we get our forces vaguely organised. Jutton says, "Don't forget about the pumps." Yes, I'm paying some attention to the pumps. Not time to turn them off yet. So this looks like a fairly small goblin force. I mean, they brought beak dogs, but it looks like there's like 20 of them. So I'm not highly worried by this. Also, an advantage of bringing my forces out to the surface early is that they get to finish all of the night feeling dizzy because it's so bright out here before they start encountering the goblins. Possibly, I'm just thinking that like possibly morally I should move my army up to the bank of the river so that they can stand there looking menacing at the goblins on the far side. Because obviously part of this should be that we like size one another up. No, that was not the right button. So a bit longer before we turn off the pumps. Dwarves mostly stopped feeling ill apart from those three. Right, now this, yes, digging down here is going to be a bit awkward. So that's all dry. Maybe we should not do something time critical while we're in the middle of a fight with the goblins. I mean, not in the middle of a fight. We're currently having a meeting with the goblins. While also standing on the far side of the river and looking menacing at them. And occasionally getting into fights with giant Kia. Yes, you met one of my military while they were in military mode. This is not good for a giant Kia. The Axe Lord hacks the agitated giant Kia in the head with her, well, her axe, I think, but its name is Aston Snimem Shazak Midor, and the severed part sails off in an arc. Well, yes. Let's turn the pumps off about now. Oh, and we should install some more tombs, shouldn't we, just in case. Since we've probably got enough now. And then we can install doors, probably again, we've got enough. Not quite. I mean, happily the goblins can't see that our preparations for this battle involve both bringing up vicious-looking axe dwarves and arranging extra tombs. We had a diplomacy button up there briefly, I'm fairly sure. And then it vanished. It's like someone trying to hold a meeting. Can't see anyone. Where's the mayor? What's the mayor doing? It's usually the mayor's job, isn't it? The mayor is storing an item in a bin. The king doesn't appear to exist at all. Is the king not currently here? No, we don't appear to have a king at the moment. Well, that's probably helpful.
Absence of foolish mandates.
Yes. I'm not quite sure whether the goblins are, like, considering attacking us. Because we had a brief diplomacy button and then it vanished. We've got quite a lot of fresh pedestals there waiting for more goblins, don't worry. And I think pretty much everyone is now wearing beak dog bone trinkets. Maybe not. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm slightly concerned by the fact that this axe lord appears to be wearing only an axe, a helm and a shield. Like, I think you should be wearing a bit more than that. Yeah, okay, it looks like most of these guys are not wearing beak dog bone trinkets, which possibly we should correct. So, are the goblins still hoping for a parley? I'm a bit confused. Occasionally our military have to go off and sleep. Jifton says, didn't the king get into a fight or something and then suspiciously lift a mandate? Yes, you're right. Last session the king ended up in a fist fight with a small child, I think. Or possibly a large child, who knows. So possibly that means that we don't have a king anymore. Let's see what the civilization information says. So the Orbs of Yore are our civilization. We do allegedly have a king. Vukar Ugith Muthkat. Should be somewhere here. There's the big list of tombs. That's not the correct Vukar. Right, so the current king is not dead, which suggests that someone has actually become king. Just apparently they're not here. We are still the capital. Maybe the king will turn up at some point. Justin says, I saw a second Vukar near the bottom. Let me have another look then. Yeah, I only spotted that one. Ezuming. Ah, Vukar Sirab Zephon. Which is not the correct name. So I think my current belief is that there is a king of the Orbs of Yore, and they're not here. Right, the goblins have started moving. So I think I'm going to assume that that's the beginnings of an attack. So let's send our perhaps slightly small number of amphibious dwarves up to here. Try to remember where the lever is that connects things up. Drawbridge, there it is. Because I think what we want to do is to get to the point where the goblins have mostly crossed over into the delta area. That's an awful lot of crossbow bolts. Then I think we pull that lever. And hope that an adequate number of the goblins fall into the water. So you're in the river, but all being well, you're quite competent at swimming, so you're going to be able to get out again. Goblin bowman dodges a flying militia captain. So yes, that seems to be going pretty well for that random militia captain. So there does appear to be a dead rabbit there, but also a dead beak dog, so like that's a good start. So I think that's a goblin who just leapt through the air, landed sufficiently badly to be slightly stunned by the experience, and is now standing right next to a militia captain armed with a bismuth bronze spear, who is probably about to have some fun with the stunned goblin. Hint, leaping over the river in such a way that you land painfully. Let's send the other squads down to the drawbridge, ready for it to lower. Leaping across the river in such a way that you're stunned on landing is probably not a wise move. Spleesh! There is a lot of splishing going on here. And like, I think it's mostly non-dwarves. Stunned, drowning, faint, heavy bleeding. Oh dear, someone has died though. Litast Sazirastal. What happened to you then? Right, obviously we want to at least slightly check. Okay, what did happen? Like, is there an entry here for the wrestler Litast Sazirastal? Or are they like under some other descriptor? There. Oh, they were a recruit at the start of the fight, apparently. Successfully defended themselves with a shield, but did get stabbed, possibly because they weren't wearing any boots, based on the lack of any mention of their boots. Yeah, okay, yeah, wear boots, they're useful. And at that point, everything went horribly wrong because someone didn't wear their safety boots. It's quite hard to work out what's going on because there's this immense amount of spray. Looks like, say, this goblin has probably managed to get killed by a weapon trap, which is impressive. Let's see if we can find one of the weapon trap victims. Doston Gosp, Sazmar Struk, or possibly Zolak Stazos Stegu. Sadly, we don't know their descriptor. So that was all perfectly sensible. And then this is the point at which they landed on a weapon trap. Okay, yes, I suppose if you're going to turn up in wolf leather leggings, then even a copper pick is going to be quite vicious. And in particular, a weapon trap filled with multiple copper picks is going to be quite rapidly fatal. Yep, well, okay, those weapon traps are pretty effective. I was expecting that their major purpose would be to cause goblins to dodge the weapons and fall in the river. Let's just check up on these unfortunate dwarves who've fallen in the river. Master swimmer. Expert swimmer. Are there any other dwarves here? Not there. Oh, no, not there. Not there. I'm reasonably hopeful that there are only 2 dwarves in the river and they can both swim. Like, there's probably a lot of stuff going on under this mist. Sorry, I was just watching this dwarf and he suddenly leapt back across the river. I mean, he has the skills to do that. He's a master swimmer, so...
You've got at least one master swimmer still around.
I think that might be an unhappy dwarf. Stressed, but not badly injured. Apparently you're a bit short on discipline, but adequate swimmer, so you'll be fine. Maybe some of the goblins now know where the weapon traps are.
That you have to move them after every fight.
They're not going to report back to anyone.
Well, maybe one. Are you sure? Did one sneak off the map?
I mean, I don't know if they can actually notice weapon traps, but... slight problem of... is this a swimming dwarf or is this a non-swimming dwarf? No, that's a swimming dwarf. Oh, that's one of the ones who's climbed back out of the river, yes. And has thus ended up behind enemy lines, but there's relatively few enemies there, so... Have we got the bridge down yet? Yes. Right. Let's go in from behind them, but try not to get too close. Basically, your lot's aim is to mop up. Do not dodge the flying crossbow bolts and fall in the river. That will be embarrassing. Stay well away from the river and pick off anyone who comes back down this way. It looks like there's most of the remaining enemies. You can swim, can't you? Yes. Most of the remaining enemies are busy drowning. Let's just have a look at the list. So there's a decent quantity of beak dogs still alive. There are only 4 goblins still alive and 2 of them are busy drowning. Being those 2. One of them is there sharing a square with an angry dwarf. Not sure where the other one is. Ah, there, yes. Sharing a square with an unhappy beak dog. Don't leap back across the river, you nutters. Am I going to get like 5 drowned dwarves here because they tried to take a stupid route home?
Probably, I mean, dwarves. If you give them a choice between doing a sensible thing and drowning, they'll probably drown, you know.
Okay, maybe those ones are the non-drowning type dwarves. It does appear to be. Oh, that's our known dead dwarf. Yes, that's fine. We do seem to have lost a dwarven child and a doctor, but I think that's just due to the general unhappiness of the fortress rather than. Okay, we've just yes. Okay, maybe you did suffer a goblin-related incident. Found a child's mutilated corpse in a pond. What was their name? Let's try to work out what's happened to them. Tozid Abelnodub. Okay, yes. The child did indeed get stabbed by a pike-wielding goblin. I was attacked. I am not exhilarated. Not quite sure what you were doing there in the first place, but... I'm going to hope that everyone who just fell into the river... Oh dear, no, several of them are drowning. You idiots. I mean, we can try to lower the water level. But last time that caused people to instead die of being pummeled in the head with weapons dropped by goblins. Let's try opening the drain, a drain that's reasonably far from the dwarves, in the hope that they won't get sucked down the drain, but this might lower the water level a bit. I'm not highly optimistic that this will work. Or that it will work quickly enough. Sadly, dwarves are not like good at rescuing one another from the river. Right, is that going to drop the water level far enough in the right places? I don't think it is. Right, given the sheer number of dwarves involved, we are draining as much of the river as we can and just hoping they don't all die of objects dropping on their heads. There's drain C hiding. Ah, that's the one I've already opened, right, yes. This may be messy, but it's probably better than drowning. Let's make sure that all of the doors into the catch pits, or whatever they're called, are open. So that anyone who gets into one stands some chance of escaping. Yeah, this is not turning out well.
Right. Mute.
Like even to round trip, let alone be hard.
I mean, officially the siege is still going on. Is there actually like a goblin out there somewhere? No, there's only one beak dog kicking around. Where's the beak dog? The beak dog has fallen into the drainage system. Let's order our competent, non-idiotic dwarves to kill the one remaining beak dog, if I can find it. And cancel the orders of the idiots, in the hope that as civilians they will be less prone to leaping over rivers. It looks like someone may have survived that experience and is now busy attempting to engage a beak dog in hand-to-hand combat. So yes, beak dog doctor is repeatedly punching. Jutton says, sorry, I've just realised I've been paying zero attention to the to IRC, and I should now catch up. Yes, there is a problem that that we still have problems with dwarves not putting their boots on, which was a problem before. And yes, we do have our swimming dwarves are relatively sensible and not idiotic. So this doctor does appear to be doing pretty. Yeah, so they had a problem that the doctor slams into the doctor slams into an obstacle. The doctor then got bruised by having badger leather leggings dropped on their heads, followed by the corpse of a goblin. And then they've been in a rather one-sided fight with this beak dog for some time. But I observe there's also a stray dog there who might be more competent at killing beak dogs. Yes, that looks better. So yes, the beak dog's unconscious and the doctor is out of the immediate danger zone of having rubbish dropped on their head. But there is still one dabbling swimmer, it looks like, in the river. So I'm not going to close the drains yet. Not until they either learn to swim or get out. Most of the drains, that one doesn't seem to have caught anything. So that drain itself does have 2 people in it. They are at least cheered by the waterfall. So I hope they can get out of there because the door's open. There is a beak dog standing in the doorway. Also, no, there is a beak dog in their square, but the beak dog's unconscious, so. They're all busy punching this beak dog. If the dog here could, like, finish the beak dog off, that will make life for the dwarves a lot simpler. How's your swimming skill getting on? No, you're still only dabbling. Like, at the moment, this dwarf is learning to swim quite rapidly, I expect.
Unsieged.
Oh yes, it's officially not a siege. Well, that probably means that last beak dog got killed. Yes, no sign of a beak dog there. Only one dwarf corpse in that cupboard, so that's probably good. We still want to keep draining the river, though, for the sake of this one foolish axe dwarf, who has now just fallen down the drain. Excellent. That might mean I can now close the drains. I've been rained on. Well, actually, that was the river.
Oh, if you're a proper rock hard axe dwarf, then you disdain to tell the difference between a light shower and a river falling on you.
Also, there appears to be a child in this waterfall now.
Enjoying it, though.
Yes, yes. Where was that axe dwarf got? Where did that axe dwarf get to again? I mean, I suppose the simple answer is they're not in the river anymore. But on the other hand, we are usefully draining this to get stuff out of it. So if there's no one in any of the drains, apart from this weird child who is frankly in... Oh, right, they're trying to remove items from that drain. Okay. So I think there's now no one in the river, is there? Not as far as I can tell. Let's check for drowning. But on the other hand, we don't think anyone should be drowning right now because because we've lowered the water level. But it's a very dynamic lowering of the water level. So I think it might now be reasonable to lock these doors to stop the dwarves trying to get things out from behind them. But we'll want to unlock them if we spot any dwarves ending up behind them. We can't lock that door at the moment because it's open. At least I presume we can't. No. 5 drains, aren't there? 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one we can't currently lock. Because there was a child behind it as well. Right, now let's lock that one as well. And then leave things draining for a bit to try to suck more rubbish down the drains. Because the more rubbish we can get down the drains, the easier it is to retrieve it and do something useful with it, or at least convert it into trinkets. And if we get the water level low enough, dwarves might even, perhaps rather too bravely, go down into the river and pick things up. But that might be dangerous. I should pay slight attention to check whether any of the drains have caught a dwarf. There's a dwarf in the river. In a shallow bit of the river, which is good because they can't swim.
A dabbling swim seems particularly...
Oh, you've got caught by the current. Are you going to have some fun now? No, you're being a bit careful. And you've successfully hauled a piece of goblin out of the river. Well done. Just quickly checking all of these for surprise dwarves. No, that all looks good. You have 2 cats in the river now. Is there anything down there still moving? Well, I mean, people are still coming in and picking up bits from the river, so maybe I should leave the drains operating, but it is a bit scary. So I think we suffered like 1 death from an actual goblins and about 3 deaths from drowning. What are you playing at? Yes, the problem with dropping the river level is that everyone goes, "Ooh, I can haul objects out of the river now." And so they all dive into the river to pick up objects that they think don't belong in the river. Well, you don't seem to have been too surprised by falling down there. I wonder if you can get out. What? You just managed to climb back up into the river. Well done. Briefly. And now you're carefully cleaning up the drain. Right, let's just quickly check whether any of these have surprise dwarves in them. I think I may have done one of them twice and one of them not. Let's just keep going round. Right. Why does this one not collect any objects? What are you doing there? I thought you would be leaving the place. Right, thank you. Let's lock that door again, because I don't think there's anyone else behind you. Oh, now there's someone stuck in that one. Okay. How about you don't stand under there and you instead go somewhere safer? No, apparently you're just going to stand in the waterfall. I mean, I appreciate you are feeling pleasure due to a fine floor grate and a fine door, but it's still a bit strange. Right, no one is currently in the drains. No one is even currently in the river. Oh, someone just leapt into the river. That did look very much like leaping into the river. I mean, possibly you were trying to leap across the river, but... I think we're getting close to the point where the objects in the river have mostly stopped moving. So I think we will slowly stop draining the river. Start with drain C. I think. As there are very few objects near there. Oh, we've probably got a bunch more tombs ready to be occupied now, haven't we? Don't know if that matters, but people still seem to be exploring the bottom of the river over here. That one looks like it's probably safe to shut, so let's shut drain A. Kind of deliberately, slowly raising the water level in order to encourage people not to be in the river before it becomes like drowning depth. Quick check that there's no one in the drains. Someone actually going to pull the lever anytime soon. Someone is still working on it. Oh, right, I think someone just pulled it. Right, the water level is now rising. Doesn't look like there is anyone dangerously in the river, so let's close another drain. Say drain B. Justin points out that I could forbid the items in the river in order to stop people going in and trying to pull them out. Yes, that's true. I think someone just might have had an exciting experience. It doesn't look like their exciting experience landed them in the drains, though. Oh no, there they are. You're trying to load a weapon trap, you strange person. Right, you've made it out of the wrong place, though. Right, that's all filling up nicely. Let's close drain D and then drain E. Then we can start collecting the objects that have ended up in the drains. Ooh, beak dog corpse just washed down the drain. How nice. If we could get that damned ogre skeleton out, that would be really nice. It seems to be permanently stuck there, though. Right, that's all the drains closed again. So now we should make it permissible to remove all the objects from them. Right, now everyone will be very busy hauling items out of the drainage system. Many of them being goblin corpses, which they will then haul all the way over here, and then we will say, no, you should actually put that in the rubbish. Possibly I should try to be a bit more organised than that. We're only, after all, interested in things that, in goblin heads, we don't really care about the rest. I think we may have a bit of a shortage of heads this time. Oh, a head. I'm not sure it's worth carefully not throwing the socks away, but it's kind of a point of principle. So there is butchery going on as we convert all of those beak dogs into their component parts. Also maintenance of weapon traps. Because some of our weapon traps actually have ranged weapons in them. That weapon trap still isn't constructed. Let's get on with that. Oh, and we should raise the drawbridge again. Hope no one's on it when that happens, because that can be exciting. I suppose we don't have to melt down crossbow bolts if we just stick them all in weapon traps. Um, all right, yes, the dwarves are mostly hauling the stuff out of the drainage system at the moment, aren't they? The aftermath of a siege is mostly an enormous amount of tidying up. Anyway, how about these minecarts? Shall we just try carefully checking the state of everything, and then sending a minecart round them? Let's look at the north. So the north thing is slightly confused in that the new N5 state shows empty, the old N5 state shows occupied. That's not too much of a problem, but probably means I manually reset it or something. Right, so let's assign a minecart to Dwarf Washer North A. And have the departure condition be push off west immediately, always. Is that correct? No, it's push off south immediately, always. And then just see what comes of that. Right, butchery is ongoing. Right, there's the minecart put in position. So now we want to watch for someone to set it going. So it has passed N1 detect. That means that N1 is now filling, correct. N5 is now meant to be emptying, but that's N5 old, which doesn't really matter. The real N5, which was already marked as empty, to be fair, is still marked as empty, so that's fine. Because it's activated N1 detect, it should have activated N2 approach control. It has, and so now there will be a short period while that minecart oscillates back and forth there. Right. N2 approach control has disengaged. That means that it's now been allowed to pass and has passed N2 detect. That means that N1 is draining, N2 is filling. That's correct. So now we're dependent on the water depth being right. Yes, not much time to spare, but the doors on the relevant flip-flops closed. So N2 is properly showing occupied, N1 is properly showing unoccupied. That should be detectable by the fact that the N2 signal is active and the N1 signal is inactive. Yes. It has now passed N3 detect, which has properly started draining N2 and filling N3. We have approach control on N4. Oh, which hasn't activated. I did I carefully check the approach control, or did I forget that that signal 4 was approach controlled? Maybe that's where our flaw is. That's still disengaged. It's got 2 mechanisms is in it, which suggests it's controlled from somewhere. Oh no, it's going to have one mechanism that's from when I toggled it on initial building, isn't it? Right, N4 approach control may be faulty. Let us add a very short note to it, consisting of a question mark. So the consequence of that is going to be that probably that this minecart now trips N4 detect too early. Oh, what? It just bounced backwards. Why did that happen? Those rollers are active because N4 signal is active. N4 signal should only be active if N4 state is active, which it isn't. Have I miswired things? Have I wired what should have been going to N4 approach control to N4 signal? Which will mean that, which will look all right at this stage, because essentially what I've accidentally done is turned an inclusive OR into an exclusive OR. And as long as only one input is active at a time, you can't tell the difference. But which means that as long as there's only one minecart going around, it will look like it works correctly. But as soon as you put a second minecart in, you can trigger both inputs at once, at which point the fact that it's an exclusive OR suddenly becomes seriously problematic, because it starts letting minecarts through as long as there are 2 reasons not to let the minecart through. Right, we have found it. Well, we have found a problem. We have found what I think is the problem with the north thing. So that will then, yes, so we get something that looks superficially like approach control, but is actually faulty in one of the 4 states. Right, so that's now been released at the moment when, so it should now have left that one, N3, in the right state, shouldn't it? Yes, N3 is draining properly, N4 is filling properly. Now this one is time-based, and so somewhere around there that closes. Yes, that's good. And we operate the next one. That's actually emptying N4 correctly and should be filling N5, albeit by moving a platinum minecart across. Yes. And that has now that should therefore have, oh yes, that's activated that signal, which is what we want, yes. And because that's a minecart based flip-flop, it's perfectly safe even if this trundles all the way round rapidly, though it probably won't. Right, so Pinkbee says, and as we know in debugging, every time you find one bug, you now have 0 bugs. Well, yes, to be fair, it is still possible that there's a disastrous bug in this system, but we have at least found one bug, which is more than we found with our exhaustive test suite earlier, because our exhaustive test suite turned out not to be exhaustive enough. Right, so let us now remove that minecart from Dwarf Washer NA and install it in Dwarf Washer SA. And set the conditions on that one in the same way, only it sets off north. Actually, it doesn't, because it looks like this. Oh no, it's not that one. That's S1. Is S1 in the wrong state here then? Yes. Okay. Let's not have anyone move that minecart yet. And instead, quickly empty S1, which has somehow ended up full. Something in the test program left it in the wrong state. That's not entirely surprising. I think I should probably move this goblin parts stockpile. It's blatantly in the wrong place. It should be somewhere over here. Possibly a bit out of the usual routes that dwarves take, so they don't all get upset by seeing dead goblins, though really dead goblins shouldn't be upsetting. So that's just configured for corpses, goblins. I mean, we could add the other kinds of creature they bring with them. Like we could store beak dog corpses there, but we don't want to. We want to store beak dog corpses underground where we can butcher them. At least if we're reasonably efficient about our butchering. Dump the nervous tissue. So let's actually remove that stockpile and create a new stockpile, say over here. Let's add Minera to it as well, because those are intelligent. They've brought them before, and those are intelligent enough that we can't butcher them. So we don't really have anywhere to put them. What the hell is a metal attendant? Probably some kind of angel or something. Manera. That will not make much difference. Most of the of course, goblin heads we really want to accumulate over here, but sadly, goblin heads don't get categorized separately from anything else. Let's actually just mark everything that's over there also as not forbidden. Things that are likely to be parts of things dropped by dead goblins. That'll do. I mean, there's probably a quantity of crossbow bolts that we could reclaim as well, but meh. Right, so we now have that minecart in place. All the levers are to the left, as they should be, and S1 now shows as unoccupied. Right. So let's now watch that minecart trundling. It's going to be no, it won't be that awkward to disentangle this. We just have to... yeah, we're going to have to drain the flip-flops to sort this out, aren't we? Right. So, minecart has set off. One open minecart. It has passed S1 detect, which has started filling S1 and emptying S5 state old, and has flipped that flip-flop. That should then mean... Hang on, it hasn't flipped that flip. What? Oh yes, S5 is thus now empty, yes. Because it's entered S1. So the S1 signal should now be active, yes. As should S2 approach control. S2 signal should be inactive. So now the minecart should bounce back and forth there. Until the approach control releases. That should immediately cause it to pass S2 detect, which causes S1 to start draining and S2 to start filling. Which means that eventually S1 will stop being active. S2 should have immediately become active. So that can now head along there. Shortly before it reaches the next set of signals, those doors should close, thus leaving S2 marked as full, S1 marked as empty. The S1 signal should clear very shortly. S3 signal should be disengaged, so it should sail happily past S3. That should then start draining S2, filling S3. By now, probably that's disengaged, yes. S1 is now disengaged as expected. So now we've entered this block, we triggered S3, that should then have triggered S4 approach control. S4 approach control is correctly active. S4 signal, on the other hand, is inactive, which is what we expect. So then that runs around to there and oscillates again very briefly until S4 approach control disengages. Then the moment it passes there, it hits S4 detect, which fills S4 and drains S3. That hasn't finished draining yet, which means that now that signal should be showing occupied as a result of the signal being active. Yes. Just before we reach the next signal, and it really is rather tight, those doors close. Which means that we should now be in a stable state of S4 being full and S3 being empty, which means that signal S3 should be getting very close to disengaging. Not quite yet, though. Meanwhile, that should safely trundle past there, which has then activated the next ones. S4 is now draining. Probably by now S3 signal is disengaged, hasn't it? Yes. So then this signal should now be engaged. Yes. S4 is in the process of disengaging, but it'll be a while. We are now in S5. That's actually activated this one, which has, yes, S5 now has a platinum minecart on it. It's so active, and so it's full. And so that should now trundle up here, reach the end of the track, and then those doors close, and the signal behind it, S5 should still be active because the minecart's still in that section, but S4 should now have disengaged. Right, that looks like the southern loop did everything as I expected. The northern loop, I'm not so sure about. But no, the northern loop I am sure about is broken. The southern loop, I don't quite understand if anything, if it I thought both of them were broken when I tested them last time, but I can't see the fault in the southern loop at the moment. So let's...
Tales from the Southern Loop.
Ah, but I never even tried sending 2 minecarts round the southern loop, it looks like, because I've never created Dwarf Washer SB. So maybe I need to do that. Good night. Oh, it's a goblin head. We'll keep that one. That's a tooth. We won't. So, yes. Well, let's, at the very least, now reconfigure... Since we think Dwarf Washer SA works correctly, let's mark it as ride. I'd like it can thus start training dwarves at least a little bit. Here is a dwarf being trained on a train. I doubt that one trip is going to be enough to bump them up to novice swimmer, but we can hope. The trips are longer than they used to be because we run the rollers a bit slower. Right. So are we all now? Yeah, lots of dwarves are moving bits of armour around, as is kind of expected. I reconfigured this lot, didn't I, so that they would take armour, any armour, as long as it was not metal, yes. And then metal armour, what of it they might find, ends up down here, ready to be recycled. Or, in extreme cases, reused, but mostly recycled. Possibly I should actually split the metal armour by material. They do a lot of not feeling anything when we've had a siege. You learnt to swim yet, have you? Not really, no. But there seems to be no shortage of people wanting to ride these mine carts. So possibly I should boldly attempt to put to put a second minecart on the southern loop. Assuming, and is anyone actually? Yes, there goes someone about to ride it. Good. So I'm watching the rhythmic gurgling of the flip-flops at the moment. You can also see each time we consume a small amount of water by operating the flip-flops, because a depression in the surface of the West River spreads out. Which is rather sweet. Right. So if we want to put a second minecart in there, what we need to do is to temporarily block one of the track sections that isn't the one the minecart is in at the time. So if we temporarily block S4, actually for safety, and I know I don't often do things for safety, but for safety, let's have the minecart on its next run be untenanted, so that when it does get held up on the approach to S4, the dwarf in it doesn't die of dehydration. Right, so now that minecart is sitting at the entrance to S4 but with no one in it, which means that I can now create Dwarf Washer SB route. That, like Dwarf Washer SA, has a single stop there. Like Dwarf Washer SA, the condition on it is push off north immediately always. It also needs a minecart assigned to it, which should be, obviously I'm being a bit paranoid here and making it push off north. Right, I need to think about this, because I think it's going to be slightly too easy to accidentally end up with unhappiness here. Why is that door open? Oh yes, because we are officially filling S4. So what I'm slightly worried about is that when I empty S4, no, here's what I should do. We should not set SB to launch immediately. We should instead just park the minecart there. Indeed, we could logically park the minecart there right now by just pulling S5 twice. To mark that section as full. Yeah, this works. We're still getting into fights with the giant Kias, aren't we? Feathers are not helpful objects. They're doing a pretty decent job of butchering the beak dogs, though. The spare ones are starting to rot. We haven't managed to butcher them fast enough. Well, let's dump all of the rotted ones because we can't turn them into food. Or trinkets. I mean, technically, I suppose we could leave them to rot away entirely, couldn't we? And then we might be able to turn their skeletons into trinkets. Yeah, let's see if that's possible. Beak dog beaks, like we should actually be able to process somewhat. Oh dear, right, they've both got launched. That was not really what I wanted. So the problem is, oh, did I just reconfigure? Yes, idiot face. I reconfigured NB, not SB, which is why we've ended up in this situation. Let's now set both of these to don't launch until I say so. Then I'm going to have to manually muck around with the levers to get them into the right places. Let's quickly lock that door so that we can keep that convenient dwarf in position. Right. So we want to mark in. No, we want to. So S5 is correctly marked as unoccupied. How about the dwarf who's like right next to this tries pulling the lever? Okay, apparently no, this dwarf does not wish to pull that lever. Let's allow any dwarf to pull the lever because at least then it'll probably get pulled. We hope. Someone? Lever? Oh dear, things are rotting. I mean, it's not surprising. I hope people aren't bringing in rotted beak dogs. Like, it's not helpful to do that. Right, here comes someone who might actually be willing to pull the lever for us. Let's try locking them in there and see if that works any better, since we now know them to be definite willing lever pullers. So S4 is currently shown as occupied, which is a lie, was a deliberate lie on my part. S3 is shown as occupied, but that's correct. So we want to empty S4. Now the problem is that as soon as that properly empties, it's going to try to fill again. But that's actually okay, because that will work, I think. Now come along and pull the lever again. So that minecart will now head through there up to S5 and will then stop. This minecart will then just quickly checking for miasma sources. That looks good. I mean, the nervous tissue still needs to be got rid of, but right, so that minecart is now in S5 and has correctly activated S5. We have the slight problem that so what we want is for this minecart will then run into S4. It's currently at the entrance to S4. So we seem to have ended up in the situation where S4, which is, yes, the one ahead of it, is still stuck occupied. So we should temporarily empty S4 again. And that should be safe, because at worst the minecart will run through S4 and will park itself at signal S5, which is where we want it to be. Right, so now let's check the state of all those. We have one minecart at S5, in block S5, and one minecart in block S4. And S4 is shown as occupied, S3, S2, S1 are shown as unoccupied. S5 is shown as occupied. Right, that's all good. Let's now enable pushing those minecarts, but we will not put anyone in them yet. Bonk. No, that's NA, that's not the right one. SA. Ponk. Push off north immediately always. And SB, push off north immediately always. Now let's do a couple of cycles before we start putting anyone in them. Also, let's unlock that door because I don't think we should need it again. People are bringing in rotted corpses, possibly because when they started moving them, they weren't rotted, of course. Right, there goes someone about to launch one minecart. So there's a minecart that's set off. All being well, as a result of that minecart setting off, this minecart should then come into the station. There we go. And then that minecart will stop here until the next one departs. Which it does. And once that one's en route, the first one returns to the station. So that looks like this is working. Do we want to risk putting some dwarves in it? I think we probably do. No, that's NA, don't do that. SA, stop 1, ride north. SB, stop 1, ride north. Now, of course, there are dangers in this system, in that since the dwarves can only get off at one station, it is critical that the dwarves keep moving things. Because if we reach the point where no one is departing, then the dwarf who's currently on the minecart in the water will get stuck there. But on the other hand, this has the great advantage that they will really learn to swim really well. Right, it looks like we've mostly tidied away the bits of goblin now. We have like, oh, that's a beak dock head, isn't it? That can go. I mean, I suppose maybe it doesn't need to go. Maybe we can keep a beak dock head around for turning into a totem later. We appear to have one goblin head as a result of that. Nguslu Tospnako. Right, that one should be placed on a pedestal. I think that's some stuff that was left behind by a goblin thief. But like, quite a lot of it looks wearable. Okay, people are still bringing in rotten beak dog corpses, which is unhelpful. Possibly once they started rotting, I should have forbidden them rather than thinking about dumping them. Then once those rot down to skeletons, we might allow them to be brought into the fortress. It's a dead rabbit. I think that could be disposed of. Right, so that was some progress. We've actually got one of our two dwarf washing systems apparently functional. We can see here that we now get... Go on, someone come along and join in. We can now have two dwarves safely going around this one loop. And in theory, we could increase that to 4. In that, obviously, we need one space to allow for one at any given time. We need one unoccupied track section so that we can still make progress, but that's all we need. On the other hand, I'm slightly scared by working out the process of installing more mine carts. Maybe it's not hard. Maybe you flip section 5 to permanently occupied, put the minecart there set to not launch, then unflip it, and then set it to launch. Yeah, I think we could do it. Justin says, can you extract the remaining dwarves from the system by manually removing minecarts or something? Yes, I think so. I think I just deassign the minecarts from the routes, and they'll get lifted. They'll get removed from the track when they're next in a position to be removed, which is when they're next at the station. So yeah, I think taking the minecarts out of service is actually quite simple. Putting them into service is harder, but taking them out, yeah, should just work. Right. Well, that's kind of a triumph. And of course, we can remove dwarves without removing minecarts just by flipping from ride to push. Oh dear, a stray donkey has died. What a pity. We should probably, like, maybe you're going to do something useful with that corpse. We'll see. Stop bringing rotten beak dog corpses into the building. I mean, okay, maybe you're actually extracting them from the drainage system. Let's forbid that one. It's probably okay for things to rot in the drainage system. Right. That goblin head has been properly placed on the pedestal, as it should be. So we should also, of course, as the minecarts move, see this flip-flop change state. It's rather slow. I don't like how slow these flip-flops are. It takes a long time for that minecart to move. I'm slightly oh, I think I know why it takes so long. Because what happens is this minecart made of willow is accelerated to maximum speed. This minecart weighs 15 eurists. This minecart made of platinum weighs 856 eurists. So when you clout an 856 eurist minecart with a 15 eurist minecart, the 856 eurist minecart departs at a speed that's something like 1/50th of the incoming minecart speed. So where this one crosses a cell in 2 ticks, this one takes nigh on 100 ticks to cross a cell. Right, yes, so we actually want these minecarts to be as close as possible in weight, such that they are nonetheless on opposite sides of the trigger weight of that pressure plate. I wonder what I set the pressure plate to. Did I set it to 800 or 500? I probably set it to 800. If you do it the other way around, the wooden one goes off like a rocket. Yes, I expect it does. That's why it resets very quickly. I mean, actually, it doesn't go off like a rocket very far because it can only travel 1 square. But yes, I think that's why it's rather slow to respond. We might want to try putting a heavier minecart in there at some point. Though probably not while the system's operational. Is that a rotten beak dog corpse you're moving? It is. Stop moving that rotten beak dog corpse. We'll wait till it's a skeleton and then you can move it. and we can probably disarticulate it and turn it into trinkets. Right, I think all is well. I think I should go to bed before anything else goes wrong. And then we need to remember, actually, is there somewhere I should make a note of this? That N4 signal and N4 approach control are miswired. Sorry, I do just have to briefly mention that we have named one of the giant Kias Shovthbithit. Just in case you needed to know that. Right, that will be all. We will be back on Friday to fix the wiring that we do know is broken. Maybe try increasing this one to 4 running minecarts first and seeing what happens. So until then, we save to this timeline and then say good night.